my screen. I hope you can see that. Sharing that for you. So, okay. So what you see here, this is the typical start screen with all your projects, but we would like to start today a new project to analyze a example data from an example survey containing a list. In this case, it will be a list of banks. To start a new project is always with the new project button. We'll repeat that just in case. So you always have this green button here, just one click, and then you go into the project and you can start importing your data. The other possibility is obviously here via the main menu, where you see your project menu, where you can manage your existing projects. Or when you go here on import data, the same happens. I'm coming to the import screen to import my data. For the semi-opens, usually you would have your data in any type of file format. We support quite a number of them, ranging from the various Excel types, CSV, text, SPSS, SAV files. So you can upload them. Normally, the data should be organized in a matrix format, i.e. with columns and rows. If you are unsure, you can see here some examples. I will import now, and by the way, this is drag and drop, so you could easily just drag your data set. I'm doing it in the background, but you can only see my Safari screen, so you're not seeing how I move my mouse from my file browser. So the next thing what happens if you uploaded your data, you see the organizational sheet, which basically tells you what our system has recognized. So in our case, we have 7 columns in my file. I have 748 data rows actually of the participants of that survey here, and there's no row to be skipped, so that all looks good. On the right-hand side for the filters, you can also see I have 3 open-ended questions. This is correct, I know that, but sometimes our system maybe detects a question which is also open, you don't want to analyze, or sometimes if you have like long data labels that can be detected as an open-ended questions, if that happens and you don't want to have that as a question to be analyzed, then you just change the format. In my case here, there's an open-ended question. If I would go here to other column, you would see from this count, one of the open questions disappears. In my case, everything is all right. I would like to have that as an open-ended question. So I click that back in. And just to tell you, these 4 first columns, this is like auxiliary data, which I can use for segmentation, for identification, for charting, dashboarding, for filters. So I have here an ID number, I have an age group, I have a gender, and I have a date. So I can actually also draw a line chart. If you have the time at the end of the session, I might show you that. And then in this case, I have 3 questions of a brand awareness in this case. So we asked in the survey about your recognition of banks in this case from various countries, and we had 3 data fields. So we have these 3 data fields. They all contain banks, basically, top of mind, openly entered. So we would like to analyze them, and we can decide, and I'll show you how to do that along the way, whether we want to analyze them separately, column by column, or whether we maybe merge them. And I will show you that now. So if you're happy with the data, we can just proceed by continue settings. I can give my project a name. I will just call it demo list question. And I can give my project tags. This is not, you're not required to do that, but it can be helpful if you're a long project list to have some tags. So there's some tags here already. So in this case, it's list answers, but I can also create a new tags. Since I know that's banking, maybe I would like to put it into my banking sector. I don't have the tag, so I create a new tag for banking that will help me later on to find my project. I'm happy with English, but as you know, we support many languages, over 30 at the core of our system. And if that's not enough, we can also use auto translation, and then we can capture languages from the translation service DeepL and Google. Google covers more than 100 languages, DeepL not as many, and then you can decide how you use automatic translation. For most list questions, that's not required because often brands, they are written in an international format or something. It can happen. It can be a possibility. So that's something to think about for your project. That maybe comes into evaluation. In my case, it's simply banks. I don't need that, so I don't use the translation, but I keep my code book in English. And as soon as I save, I'm going to the next stage. The system now uploads the data, organizes them in the background. This just takes a couple of, I was going to say a couple of minutes, but should be only a few seconds. And then my project appears here in my project list at the top as last created, demo list question. That's the one. And then you hear the organizational sheet for my free question, my awareness 1, 2, and 3. And to start the analysis, I just click on Start the Analysis. I'm sorry, I don't want to confuse you. You see, in your case, in my case here, Start Analysis version 2. We are, working on a quite a significant update in the background. I can see that already. At the moment for you, that's just Start Analysis, so don't get confused by that. So if I hit the Start Analysis button, I can now decide whether this is a fully open question or semi-open question. Now, the first question is, why would we distinguish? The challenges for semi-open and fully open questions, they are quite different, and so are the demand and challenge for our system AI algorithms and how we analyze the data. For a semi-open question, it's mostly concerned with spelling mistakes, with grouping words which are spelled very similar and stuff like that. Whereas for fully open questions, we want to draw connections between words and phrases and sentences. So this is usually a different type of animal. So that's for that reason we actually have two slightly different engines in the background. So for the semi-open question, we select this field here, and then we go into the selection of the code book. Clicking on the next page. By the way, what I wanted to show you, I'm just going back one screen. If sometimes you sit there and there can be borderline questions. In my case, it's very clear because I have brand names. It's very obvious, but sometimes you have like unique phrases which occur very, very often. So it could sometimes be a possibility to use a semi-open. If you're unsure and you don't know your data that well, you can always open the data here, have a last look and see like, okay, is this really semi-open or is it fully open? In my case, as I said, it's pretty clear. You can see that here already bank names, which you're probably familiar with. So I click that back and I'm clear. I'm going with the semi-open and I go to the next button. Now something happens very specific to the semi-open project. So as I said, I have 3 columns of the same question. So it's the top of mind awareness, and the respondents, they could use up to 3 fields to enter the bank names they know. So now I can decide whether I would like to separately analyze the first top of mind awareness or whether I combine them. Combining them is our recommendation because it's just easier, and the data, how it's laid out, is usually that the first mention is actually the first one in the data column, so you can always identify also the top of mind. So there's no need to go about analyzing them separately, and also you save some credits if you merge them together and analyze them as one. That doesn't only make the analysis easier, it also costs you less credit because when you merge them into one cell, we consider that as one verbatim, not 3, and then it costs only 1 credit. So how to do that? It's very simple. I just click on the second awareness, on the third awareness. This is very easy in my demo example. Sometimes for a larger project, you maybe have here a full set of different questions, but you can easily select and say, okay, this is the brand awareness question. I would like to merge them all 3 together and analyze them together. And if I click on merging them, the system asks me again, would you really like to do that? And I would like to do that. And then I come to the selection of the code frame. Here I have 3 options. I can either copy my code frame from another question, but of course that's only possible if I had a similar question before. So if I would have a brand awareness, in my case for banks, then I could use that code frame and copy it. That would be a great help. If I don't have that, I can also upload a file. Maybe I have already a nice list of banks, so I can simply upload a file. I want to show you how that works. You just can select it in different type, in different file formats, and then you select your format. In my case, it's Excel. I upload that, and what you can see here, I have a list of banks. I have an ID for them. I just tell the system what is the brand name, what is the code ID. I select the code book, and then I see here my code book. And now I could go ahead and work with that. In my case, it's relatively simple with those banks, but often these lists for brand awareness, they're very, very long and lengthy. And you maybe don't have the comfort of having a created codebook. So let's work with without a codebook. So I cleared that codebook, so it's gone now again. So that would be the somewhat easier case, but I would like to auto-generate a codebook. So I don't use any of those options. I just hit the next button, and now the system makes me a suggestion. So it's already counted the different mentions in my free data columns, and it comes up here with a ranking ranked by count. But I can click on this and rank it in every way I want, or I can do it alphabetically by the name of the code and what have you. So what you see here is already an overview of how my analysis comes out. You can already see certain banks are not grouped together. For example, this here, Bank of America, obviously that has to go in this group. The system hasn't detected it yet. That's what we do with a short coding exercise on the next screen. But even at that stage, you can already influence a little bit how your data looks like. So you have here, for example, this slider for term similarity, where you can actually detect how granular you want to go and how similar the terms can be. If I move that to 100%, obviously that doesn't make any sense anymore, because it really takes the actual 100% exact spelling and only counts those. Sometimes it could be interesting. In my case, it's not so nice, because I know people misspelled lots of these banks, and actually my exercise is to group them all together. So in this case, I don't want that. So you go down, the default is like about 75% similarity, but you can play around with that. You can drop it deeper, or you can drop it higher, and that's how you can expand or detract the amount of codes you create. Also, you can create a rare terms bucket. So if you, for example, say if there are certain terms not mentioned more than twice or 4 or 5 times, in my case, it's also not so crucial, because my list is not that long with 700 mentions. But if you have, like, I don't know, 20,000 responses and a very large brand list, you might want to define rare terms so that you don't worry about those mentioned only once, twice, or 3 times. So you can select with this slider here a minimum count. So if I drag that higher up, you can see already the rare terms list goes really up, and it puts everything in there which is counted less. For example, Commerzbank is only counted 8 times, so I'm here at well over that, so that goes into the rare terms. I don't want it here. In my case, I'm happy with having it at a very, very low count. And then you can also work here a little bit on the handling of the other codes. So there are 3 options. So you can do nothing. So that means there is no other code created. So you only create real code. So only the banks that are detected will occur, but there is no gobbledygook or anything super misspelled which cannot categorize, that would be ignored. Or you can, that is the default, have no unassigned answers. That means that you do not have an other or unassigned category next to a real category. So if I have, like, for example, 2 banks in my merged cell and another one which cannot be identified or something like that, it will not be shown as other. And then also I can create a other category or rare terms category where I drop everything under a certain number of counts. I stick here also with the default. What you can also here see is a little bit of a bit of an overview, a statistical overview, the number of words altogether across my 3 data cells. You can see the number of unique words and the codes generated. Once I'm happy with that, I just go to the next stage, and then I see my code book, which looks pretty familiar, I guess, but normally for a fully open question, you have a larger set of categories. For the semi-opens, that usually starts with 1 category, and that category in this case is just called code. So now you can decide whether you are happy with that. Maybe all your brands go into 1 bucket. Let's say you have brands of convenience food makers. Maybe you just want to leave them in there. In my case, I could, for example, decide to create different categories of my list questions here. So I see these banks, they come from different countries. So I see Swiss banks there, I see American banks. So I can actually create here easily another bucket and call that American banks. And then make another one, I call that Swiss banks. And I might want to have the German banks as well. And then As for the fully open question, is basically the same. Now I can just sort them. I know Deutsche Bank is a German bank. Credit Suisse is a Swiss bank, obviously. Merrill Lynch is from here. Raiffeisen, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's Austrian, but I might leave them here. And I call this code upper. So these are the other banks. And then I just go along and Bank of America, that makes also sense. BNP Paribas, I think this is French. I'll leave it here. Post, this is a Swiss bank. So you get the idea. I complete that in a second, this exercise, but this is how you would create different categories. Funny enough, they have here all the same colors, so I can easily change that, so be able to distinguish. So I have my four colors here. So I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to my coding. What happens now, you see the progressive chart. If I would not have distinguished my banks, I would just start it under one code, one category called code. I can always open that up and I can see all my banks here, but I'm closing it down again and I can see I created my 4 categories. They're already counted. So I can also have a last look at my credits and the number of codes and stuff like that. But I also want to make sure that all the codes are at the right place. And you do that as you do with the fully open questions in the coding view. So I'm going in here, and then I can do a bit of checking. In the coding view, as you know, anything, any verbatim signed with an X means it's not reviewed yet. And for the fully open questions, you could now go in and check those codes whether they're correctly assigned. For the semi-open question, however, we recommend to not do that or to do it as a last resort, because that's usually not necessary. Most of the time, you can actually organize your codes the way I've just done it, and I do a couple of more, and then you will see we have in a very few minutes a nice organization and coding of our semi-open answers. You see here the hint. So edit manually anyways. This is if you really feel like you should edit something manually or you should train a little bit the model, then you can click on edit manually. In my case, that's really not necessary. It's maybe necessary if you have a bit of a broader terminology, or maybe some of your lists are actually phrases or something like that. But in my case, it's not even necessary that I do any reviewing here. I can basically do that by organizing my code book down here, and then by just checking for the terms whether they're correctly done. If I, for example, look for Commerzbank, I just have to look that Commerzbank is always correct. That occurs to be right. But what we also have is we have still some misspelling. So before I do a little bit more digging here by searching, obviously the best would be to do that by code. I go to Commerzbank and then I can see all my Commerzbank. They should have a Commerzbank in here. If I do that, and then I can check whether that's all right. And I also should check for some potential misspellings, but we probably don't need it. So let's just go back down here. I said Raiffeisen I will leave in here. UBS is a Swiss bank. I thought that's here, but I also have USB, which is obviously a misspelling. I put it also in Swiss, but I also know it's actually the UBS that must be a misspelling. So I just drag the code over the UBS code, and now they are merged. So I trained my system, and now this is actually a single code, and I don't have to worry about that anymore. So if I would search here for USB, then I would still find it here, but it will be coded nicely as UBS. It should be coded as UBS, but unfortunately, I don't see that here. I will sort it out in 1 second. Let me carry on here. Credit Suisse. This is also a misspelling. I know that. I just drag it over. So, and this is basically how you go along and do these. This one I can delete, Bank of America and Credit Suisse, because I have them separately. I don't need a separate code for that one. And I have some Spanish banks. We have Santander, and I also have Banco Sabadell. So this one can also go. Then I have this Bank of America, which is obviously the Bank of America. I merged this into this code. So you see, this is an exercise which can go very, very quickly. Post finance, we already got that one. This is all misspelled, so I can simply merge that in here. That's also gone. And then I have the other unassigned, which I think is empty anyhow. Here is a Merrill Lynch Deutsche Bank. I can get rid of this one. So this is when terms are clinged together. So our system may be understood that could be individual banks. There's another misspelling of Credit Suisse that goes over there. Okay, and then Banco Sabadell, Commerzbank, this is German, so I've moved it into Germany. And that's pretty much This one can also go. Yeah, then I have here my other banks, and I'm happy with that. And let's have a look at the cockpit, whether everything is coded. So I now have my nice code list here. Hang on, I'm going back to the, okay, no codes. So all the codes are gone. So actually everything is basically coded. And now I only had the UBS issue here. Let's see whether that is solved. UBS USB, yeah, that has now a UBS code, that has UBS code, this has UBS code. So I was not patient enough, so the model has been calculated. So as you see, everything works fine. This is, I would be happy with this one to, yeah, now you can basically say, okay, after 22 minutes, you have done your 3 columns of questions and arrange them. And now you can decide to either download the data and process this further, or you use our charting and you create a chart. So if I go into creating a new chart, as you see, I have here these distinction between these 4 buckets of banks. But for example, I could look at them now as different segments. I told you at the beginning, I have age and gender, for example. So I can look for age groups. Is there a certain bank maybe more known in a certain age group? Or I can pick the gender variable and see which bank maybe is more known in the male or in the female bucket. But I can also, quite interestingly, look at my entire list. If I go to the general menu item, I can get rid of my categories again and plot the codes only. Sorry, this is still distinguished here by male and female, but it's fine actually for this purpose. And I can see here the other unassigned, for example, that slipped. There is nobody in here, so I'm going to delete that. So now basically we are in the mode where we can worry about the analysis. So the coding as such is done. If I discover something like that there is a code which I actually don't need, I simply go back. I want to make you aware, when you're in the charting, sometimes if you do many charts and you switch back and forth, it's sometimes difficult to go back to your project. You can always use the back button going back to the project. In this case, the system asks me whether I want to change, save the charts or not. I don't have to do that, so I cancel that. But there's always a short link to the project. My project is called Demo List Question. So if I click on this link, I always go back into my charting. And as I said, I don't like the unassigned code. I just delete that and it's gone. And now I have a count for all of my codes. And now I can do whatever I want. My first question now is, are there any questions so far? Or is that clear? Pascal, I can see you joined. Pascal is the co-founder of.
Hi, everyone.
And joined us a minute later. Pascal, did you have any questions so far?
There was just one now from Carolyn. She asked, would this technique work with durations? So like months, weeks, and time periods in general. So I assume, like, for example, if people would mention 1 month, 2 months, etc.
Yeah. Oh, are you going to answer that, Pascal? Or?
I can try. I assume, that it's sort of like, if it's a variable length time period, I mean, you could, we could classify it and say this is somebody mentioned months, somebody mentioned weeks or years, for example. If you really want to get sort of the number of the raw duration out of it, let's say you want to get it somehow normalized to X kind of days, that will be sort of another kind of tool to do that. So for us, I mean, we could get out of it that it's about days or it's about weeks, even if there is a lot of repetition of a very specific duration, then obviously we can get that out as well. But it's really about repeating phrases, and if there's like all of it is a unique combination, then it's maybe not the ideal tool for that.
But if you say, like, I don't know how long since you joined a certain service or something like that, then people are likely to answer very commonly in a very similar term, then we could definitely try that, I would think.
And then there is a second question from Natalie. Can you also show how it looks like when you download the data especially like when looking at, because you merge these three columns, how then the output looks like.
Sure.
Seems to be, yeah, she's curious about that.
Yeah, that makes actually a lot of sense. Just download it. I will open it and then I share my screen and then we have a look at the Excel. I think this is a very good question actually. Okay. Okay, I have to share my Excel screen now. I assume you can see my Excel screen now. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So what we usually have in the download is the what we call the auxiliary or metadata, so age, gender, the stuff I mentioned, and then here's the text output that you see here, and that comes like this. If we merge them with this pipe symbol. So you see here Credit Suisse, Raiffeisen, Merrill Lynch, Merrill Lynch. So your three columns are broken; they're put into one basically because we merged them. If I would have kept them separately, we would have the three different columns, but now we have them in one column. But you can see where they're cut by this pipe symbol. You see that here? So this is the cut basically. And then the codes, they occur in order of occurrence. So here's the first in this way of downloading. This is the codes by mention. We show first the mathematical code which has been given. So in this case, I have like three here, which are provided, 1, 2, 3, and then you see the code given in the exactly the next block is the code name, and the next block is the category name. So in this case, it's my first code. Code name 1 is Credit Suisse. Code name 2 is Raiffeisen. Code name 3 is Merrill Lynch. And if I go into the codes in the categories, I will see the first one is the Swiss banks, second is other banks, and third one is American banks. So that also makes sense. And then you have a few data here on your reviewing status. But that's how it looks like, Natalie. You can also download it in a different format, actually, in a binary format. And in the binary format, you would have all the codes, like in this case, all the banks and categories in one row. And then you have binary answers, i.e. 1 or 0, at the particular banks, if they're hit. So in this case, I would have somewhere here on the top the Credit Suisse, and there would be a 1. And in the other two banks would be also 1, and the rest would be empty. Okay.
It seems like there is currently no other question. Maybe I have one. Let's say now you do the study again with the banks next year. And how can you sort of, and let's say there's a new bank coming in Switzerland, it's maybe like the new age banks, Neon or others that came up. How do you deal with this?
Yeah, fairly easy. You would copy the codebook, obviously, from another question, and then you would simply let the AI detect this bank. So either you let me show you that. I restart the analysis. Yes, I'm sure I can do that. Doesn't matter. So then I go back into semi-open. Okay, I should have made a copy. That would have been easier, but in this case, I would say copy from another question. I pick my question here, which I do not have, and then I always have for the semis this auto-generate additional codes button here. So if I click on that and I move to the next screen, this new bank would be shown as a new additional code, provided it has been mentioned a couple of times. So we basically just add it to the new data set.
Great. There seem to be no more questions. Seems to be super clear. Yeah.
All right.
If there are obviously follow-up questions, please reach out to us. We're available. Oh yeah, maybe like spontaneous, just to sort of make it clear, like this merging operation that Andre showed, this obviously changes the data. So just be aware that when you then try to, for example, appending to a project, then no longer works, because you sort of in your source file you have 3 3 columns, and now it's just one. So just be aware of sort of this limitation. Then it's easier actually then to just create a new project and merge again.
Exactly, create a new project. Or what you can also do, or Pascal, stop me if I'm saying something wrong, but what you could also do is you could actually copy our pipe divider. So you could use an Excel function and prepare your data. So basically you do the merge before you upload, and then you also have one data cell, and that should, I guess, work also, or would it not work, Pascal?
Yeah, that works. I mean, this pipe symbol is just a special symbol sort of for us to, where our AI understands that this is sort of separate mentions. But yeah, it can come from anywhere. We're also happy to sort of provide you with an Excel formula if that's ever an issue.
Exactly. Then just get in
that.
touch with us. And that's always something I like to say. I was a bit quick here. Exactly. If you have any questions, whether it's to this type of to the semi-open, so to anything else, or if you have an issue just like that, you have a new wave and you want to upload data, you can always find articles in our help center that usually help you, short and concise, or you can open a chat window where you can get directly in touch, or you send an email to support@caplena.com, and then we will answer as quick and as best as we can to help you and to find the best solution for your needs. All right, I think we are over time. I thought we have maybe some time left. I would have shown you some charts, but I think we pretty much filled our half hour. So thank you very much for joining. We will soon, well, not soon, maybe the next couple of weeks, we will send around another link to another webinar, which we will conduct by the end of April. And you would be more than happy if you join again. And in the meantime, please be in touch. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic afternoon, and here and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.